Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I suppose you must have been charming that last presentation because, look, you have your second date with the Borinquen Airport. So uh, don't fall victim to second date jitters. This is our Borinquen Love Affair Part 2. You did get a case of love sickness with an added case of jetitis. So I'm excited. Today is building upon what we learned last presentation, taking those fundamentals and putting them into practice and rapid fire dealing with a sequence here. I'm really excited. Let's go to the sector and take a look at what's going on. I'll see you there. All right, so the FLM thinks it'd be a great idea for you to train, and you walk up and you get a relief briefing from your coworker, and they leave you with this: 4 aircraft, all pointed at Aguadilla Airport, all estimating the Aguadilla Airport just about at the same time, right? So don't be afraid, right? Turn this negative into a positive. This is a learning opportunity. Embrace the opportunity to separate all these aircraft, right? We are going to learn what we learned in the last video: some speed control, visual approaches, a little bit of vectoring, right, to solve this issue. You can do it. All you have to do is take an inventory mentally, what you have going on, what you have in front of you, and what you can do to make this happen. So I'll see you at the next slide at the bulleted list, and we're going to take care of this situation. See you there. Your first thought was probably like, how on earth am I going to do this, right? So that's the title of your bulleted list for this presentation. Yes, this is quite the time to be a trainee and work this, but that's okay. You got this. Let's figure out the sequence and get some order to this scenario, right? That's the first thing, right? It doesn't have to be right. As we know, there are many solutions. There's many ways to skin a cat, but have your plan and implement it, right? Do it with some conviction, right? That's what your training team will be looking for, even if it wasn't the most efficient plan. As long as you are safe and you follow through with your priorities, that's all you can ask for, right? You're going to have time, both as a trainee and when you're certified, to constantly hone in on your skills, try new things, right? But the most important thing is be safe about it. So let's solve this with some vectoring and speed control, as I alluded to before. We'll see what the 7110.65 has to say about those things, right? We'll dive even deeper, go into chapter 7, which is a lot of fun. We'll work on some phraseology too. And yeah, okay, let's get back to the sector. We're going to take this aircraft by aircraft. Keep in mind, like I just said before, there are many solutions to this scenario. So don't think that you have to take this as uh, as a matter of fact, as gospel. Just keep in mind this is whenever I sit down and I see those aircraft in the position that they're at, that's what I'm going to do. So take it for what you want, but we're going to implement the plan and we're going to follow through with it. So like I said, it doesn't always have to be right. So my plan might not even be right here. It could, somebody can solve it differently, right? But the point is we are going to do it together and follow through. So I'll see you there. Okay, so I sat down, took a deep breath, got a positive attitude, you got a positive attitude, and we are going to see this through. Remember, this is my plan, right? It doesn't always have to be this way, right? There's many ways to solve this situation. You could theoretically solve this situation with make any aircraft number 1, number 2, 3, and 4. But here's what I decided to do. So I'll give a little justification as to why. Goes to show you what's going on in my head, what I'm thinking logically. Number 1, Flight 7120. Why? They are descending to 7,000. They're in an area where I can get them lower. They're close to the airport, and they are probably the best candidate to see the airport, right? They're almost on like a pseudo base, and I will keep them, I will plan on keeping them fast and hoping that they see the airport as they progress closer. Now you see the Flight 7120 is not pointed at the airport yet. Even though this map is not to scale, they are going direct to Recca, which is just west of restricted area 7105 that you see there, and then to the airport. So I'm anticipating that they will make a turn more to the northeast after they progress to Recca. Number 2 is Translotto 7108. Now, I have to act fast because Translotto 7108 is essentially on a very long, extended final, right? They're essentially set up for the airport because they are direct Borinquen, but they need to get down. I'm surprised the last controller didn't get them down, and that's the only thing that kind of gives me heartburn about this situation is I have to get Translotto 7108 down, slowed up because Flight 1720 will slow when they start reaching a point closer to the airport, start slowing down to approach speed, configuring the aircraft in such a way for final approach. So I have to get translator 7108 not only down, but also ensure some separation until translator 7108 sees AM flight 7120. So that's my plan there. Number 3 is FedEx 257 heavy, right? Why? They're descending to 7,000, but they're not quite there yet. They're still at a 14,300, so still I can still maintain positive separation with them and Transauto, but my plan is to turn them behind Transauto and set them up for the approach that way. So unfortunately, they're not going to be as happy as not getting direct ODES anymore, as you see is what they're doing now, but a nice south turn, almost like a true south heading, 190 heading, will be just fine. Put them behind Transauto. And in number 4, AM flight 7110. Why? They are arriving the Borinquen terminal area from the east, and we are landing runway 8. So they have to essentially go fly an entire traffic pattern to get there. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to put that aircraft on downwind and leave them on downwind. As we know, everything starts with a good downwind, right? Because what the opportunity presents us with here is AM flight 7110 to fly a downwind heading and see FedEx as a turn for the approach, the RNAV runway 8 approach. So that's what I'm foreseeing. Now, this isn't going to happen organically, right? Even if we were to institute everything I just said, we're going to need to institute some speed control, positive separation, and of course, running visual approaches with one instrument approach, the RNAV runway 8. So here we go. Let's keep this going, right? We have our plan and we're going to follow it out through. So see you at the next slide. Okay, so a couple more things to consider, right? A couple more variables at play. Remember that approach is a labor-intensive and critical stage, both for you, the controller, and the flight crew. So hear me out. Let's not overload them with long, compounding, and complex clearances, right? Now, as you know, we went aircraft by aircraft and we kind of went over what exactly has to be done, right? And we also could agree that a lot has to be done, right? With descents and speed control. Lots of numbers being thrown around, lots of zeros, right? You know, lots of digits, right? So we don't want to introduce any risk. We don't want to introduce any ambiguous situations. We don't want to introduce anything that is going to disrupt our plan. So break up what you need to say and listen for readbacks. Like I said, this is going to be labor intensive, right? It'd be great to combine a whole bunch of speed restrictions, descents, and turns all in one transmission, right? But all of those are number based. We don't want the pilots to be overloaded with information while they're flying the aircraft low to the ground and preparing to land, right? And this simple three-way equation, simple clearance equals a simple readback equals pilot compliance, right? The quicker you say and the more thorough you say things, right? So think of it this way, little chunks, right? Quick and thorough, you'll get a quick and thorough readback. You'll get a, that is replied to your clearance. So just keep that in mind. Let's not overload the pilot and let's keep this going. I'll see you in the next slide. All right, everybody, let's take some inventory of what exactly we need to do and what we have at stake, right? What is the plan that we need to put into play to have a successful outcome? Here it is. AM flight 7120 needs to stay fast, descend, and look for the airport in that very order. Translator 710 needs to slow down, start down in that very order. Now, let's go to Chapter 5 and see how the 7110 enable us to make that happen. 5-2-1, simultaneous speed reduction and descent can be extremely difficult, particularly for turbojet aircraft. Specifying which action is to be accomplished first removes any doubt the pilot may have as to controller intent or priority. Specify which action is expected first when combining speed reduction with a descent clearance. Notice that caveat is only for a descent with a reduction in speed. Now, I'm pretty sure in the next and subsequent slides, when we look at the traffic situation and the transmissions, that I use then even when there is a speed increase. So any speed manipulation you see, I will put that then in there. But notice this only applies to when you're reducing speed in descending aircraft. So aircraft can remain fast or at normal speed or whatever speed they're at and descend, right? You don't need to give or specify that priority. Chapter 5-7-3 speed assignment states that assign a speed not less than 150 knots when an aircraft is within 20 flying miles of the runway threshold. That's for props and turboprops. For your heavy MD-11, we know that 210 is an acceptable speed, but once they get within 20 flying miles of the airport, 170 is the speed for jets that you're looking for. So no slower than 170. inside of 20 miles of the airport. Outside 20 miles, no slower than 210. So keep that in mind. So know your aircraft characteristics, right? We're working with a heavy MD-11, a whole bunch of turboprops of different manufacturers, but all playing by the same rules: a Metroliner, a Merlin, a Sawyer engine, Convair, Turbo Convair is our Transauto, and Amflight's 7110 is a Brasilia, an E120. So we're all working with three guys who are all playing by the same rules, and we have our one FedEx, even in minima standards, is a bit of an outlier too. So we will see you at the next slide for our transmissions and traffic situation. See you there. Okay, without further ado, let's get to our transmissions. Here we go. Amflight 7120, maintain 220 knots or greater, then descend and maintain 3000. Perfect, right? There it is. We get the reply back: maintain 220 or greater, down to 3000. Amflight 7120. Translate 7110, descend and maintain 10,000, then reduce speed to 170, right? We need them to get down first, right? Positively separated from Amflight 7120 and down to a speed where we can start building in some separation. Because right now, as it stands, we need Amflight 7120 to go fast as they can to the airport, and Translate 7110 to pull back a little bit to get that spacing on final that we're going to need, because we have to keep in mind compression, which the 7110 covers. That's why we're doing this by priority. We are increasing the leading aircraft first and reducing the trailing aircraft second. You can also find that in speed control in chapter 5 in the radar. So good job. These are good clearances, right? So let's get to the rest of the aircraft here. Okay, just updated the data tags here. Amflight 7120's assigned altitude is now 3000. Translate 7108 is now reflecting an assigned altitude of 10,000. So we're updated here. So back to some bullet points, and let's keep this going. All right, good job staying with the plan. Let's keep working. So next things in succession, we need to stop FedEx 251 Heavy's pilot discretionary descent and slow the aircraft down, right? It was a PD descent, and we have no idea what kind of speed they were assigned. We also know that when dealing with outlying aircraft, right? FedEx 257 Heavy is our outlying aircraft. 3 giant turbojets compared to all these turboprops operating close to the airport. We need to get everybody kind of playing in the same ballpark here. We also need to turn the aircraft south so they can be behind Translauto 7108, right? So that's a complex and compounding clearance, right? It's a speed reduction, altitude, descent, and a heading, a vector, and having all that in one transmission would be a little tricky, right? Lots of zeros, lots of numbers being thrown around inside the headset, and we don't want anything to get transposed, and we want a good readback, right? So let's make that, to FedEx 257 Heavy, that transmission to be 2 separate transmissions, right? Let's get Amflight 7110 on a downwind heading and slow down. Downwind heading is perfect, right? We talked about that in a couple presentations before. A 290 heading is perfect when aircraft are arriving on Aguadilla from the southeast, right? That Route 4 area, the Joshi, between Joshi and Vetus. Actually, it's almost like a perfect triangle. Between Joshi, Vetus, and Ponce forms a triangle. That 290 to 300, sometimes a 280 heading will work out just perfectly for a natural downwind heading. It all starts with a good downwind, is what a controller friend of mine would always say. And you know what else they would always say? If they're going nowhere, why are they going nowhere fast? Let's get that aircraft slowed down. Let's keep that aircraft close to the airport. Even though they're on a downwind heading, flying parallel to runway 8, we don't want them going too far south, right? Then totally out of the traffic pattern, and then they have all this distance to make up turning back to the airport. Slow them down, keep them close to the field, right? They are a part of our plan. Their plan is to follow FedEx, so keep them close, but far enough to maintain lateral separation from the traffic pattern and lateral separation from any aircraft that you have on final. That's the plan. So ready, jets go. See you at the next slide. Okay, so let's roll right into our transmissions. FedEx 257 Heavy at men altitude, descend and maintain 13,000, then reduce speed to 210. Perfect, great job. Get the readback, stop the center 13, then 210 knots of speed. FedEx 257 Heavy, Amflight 7110, fly heading 290, vector sequence, reduce speed to 150. Heading 290, speed 150, Amflight 7110. Notice there was no priority then. There was no hierarchy of what we want. There's no then there, right? They can do both at the same time. Good. Now we chunked up the clearances to FedEx, so let's hit them back. We need them to turn to that south heading. FedEx 257 Heavy, turn right 190, vector sequence. Perfect. We broke it up, right? We gave FedEx a little bit of work to do. the descent and down to 210 on the speed. We went to Amflight, got them on the downwind, slowed them down a little bit, and then we go right back to FedEx, and then we give them a simple turn clearance, which is great. So we broke up like we talked about in the last slide. So far, so good. Let's keep it going. Let's see how this plans out. Let's keep projecting. Let's know where we're putting these aircraft, and I think you're going to be very satisfied with the result. See you there. Okay, so we let the dust settle from our last transmission there. We see Amflight 7110 is now on a 290 heading in the scratch pad. Amflight 7110, you can see now that Amflight 7120 is now pointed at Aguadilla Airport, right? They departed Areca, direct Borinquen. Transauto is going to be reaching 10 here, and FedEx, we saw that they had that turn in to 190, right? 190 being placed right behind Transauto 7108. So things are looking good here. It's starting to look like a sequence. As you see, if you were to compare this image from the image that we sat down when we took the sector, the vector lens aren't all pointed at Aguadilla. They are now all pointed kind of in different direction, or they're pointed in the same direction, but in sequence. So good job. Let's keep going. Okay, so this plan looks pretty decent, right? Let's get Amflight 7120 looking for the airport now. That sounds like a good idea. We need to get Transauto 7108 down if there's any chance for them to see Amflight 7120 or the airport, right? They're still pretty high. Considering that they usually ask for descent right around the boundary with Santo Domingo, usually over Maya, they're asking for that descent. We are late with that, so we might have to pay the price with that, because at the descent rate of the Convair, they may never end up being in the same kind of ballpark altitude-wise to see and follow Amflight 7120. But what we have on our side is we have radar separation, and we got to the speed relatively fast, so we have the spacing we need, right? So let's give traffic for Transauto 7108 anyways, just so they know our plan, right? And we're going to keep pushing forward, all things considered. ATC. See you there. Amflight 7120, Aguadilla Airport, 1 o'clock, 13 miles, report the field in sight. Looking for the field or airport, Amflight 7120. Transauto 7108, descend to maintain 4,000. Traffic 1 o'clock, 9 miles, northeastbound Merlin, 6,000. Down the 4, looking for the Merlin, Transauto 7108. In sight, Amflight 7120. Boom. I'll leave it to you to finish the job. Know what you have to do, right? The approach clearance, the coordination, and the radar service termination. Perfect opportunity for practice all of that. Give it a go, see how things are looking, and I will see you at the next slide. Okay, great job with that. I hope you were able to just spit out, let it roll naturally off the tongue, your approach and radar service termination phraseology, your coordination with the tower. Now, let's keep this going, right? No time to rest on our laurels, because they're not very comfortable at all. Now start FedEx 257 down and start thinking when they can turn back towards the airport, right? We did slow FedEx down to 210, right? But like I said, if an aircraft is going nowhere, make sure they're not going nowhere fast, right? We want to keep them close to this, right? We're still trying to be efficient and expedient with our operation. Right now, we have the safety down to a point. Let's get all aircraft playing by the same rules speed-wise, right? We can also start Amflight 7110 down. We will need them to follow and see FedEx 257 Heavy. Let's point out the airport to Transauto 7108. Remember, they can have the airport in sight, and we ensure radar separation between them and Amflight 7120. 742C3 in a 7110 allows us to do that, right? Because as we discussed before, Transauto 7108 is still very high, and to see the aircraft below on final, that's kind of hard, right? The aircraft is below them, but on the horizon, they can easily see the Aguadilla Airport, right? They could probably have the city lights of Rincon and Aguadilla in sight, the blue lights of the taxiways, the runway edge lights, the beacon. They can see that, right? And we can maintain radar separation until, right? I mean, theoretically, until the aircraft, one's on the ground and one isn't. So that's cool. But we have to coordinate accordingly with the tower, right? So keep in mind that we might have to do some coordination with the tower. Okay, back on the mic, and we'll follow up with everything in the next slide. Here we go. FedEx 257 Heavy, descend to maintain 5,000, then reduce speed to 170. Down to 5, then slow to 170, FedEx 257 Heavy. Transauto 7108, Aguadilla Airport, 12 o'clock, 13 miles, report the field in sight. Field in sight, Transauto 7108. Perfect. Finish the job here. Perfect. Great opportunity for you to practice your coordination, practice your approach clearance here for Translaughter 7108. So yeah, so I'll see you at the next slide for the updated visual on what we got going on. All right, see you there. Okay, so as you see here, look at that. Amflight 7120s with the tower inside the class Delta, and Translaughter 7108, we updated that tag with VIS, the alphabetical assigned altitude variable. We see FedEx 257, yeah, it's about time to get him back to the airport, right? And Amflight 7110 is at 6,000, positively separated, right? One at 5, one at 6. We are setting up a situation for Amflight to see that heavy MD-11 in the distance and follow him into the airport. Great job. Let's keep going. We still have some work to do, and keep rowing this boat. We're almost done. All right, so speed looks good, compression looks good, and our mental state through all this, also good. Remember, right now, I did not cover this in the last slide when I told you to finish the job, but if you look in 7.2-1 or 7-2-1, under controller applied visual separation, so if you read that part of the 7110 and you go all the way down, right, you're almost at the end of that section, and it moves onward to, I believe, VFR on top or something like that, but just look for it. Under controller applied visual separation, under D, if the non-approach control tower controller, right, our Aguadilla counterpart, states to the radar controller, you, or us in this case, that they will provide visual separation between arrivals, departure and arrivals, and or successive departures, and states the call signs of the aircraft involved, the radar controller can approve the application of visual separation as requested. This is key, right? Because think about it. You have Amflight 7120 about 5 miles southeast of the airport, right on the visual. You probably called in that coordination just fine, or your D side did. But if you go back to Translaughter 7108, they do not have Amflight 7120 in sight, but guess who might have both aircraft in sight and can apply visual separation? The controller. What do they have in the tower cab? They probably have a nice pair of binoculars. Or if it's dark out, they can see both aircraft and know they're not a factor, right? This is a very, very extremely helpful instance that often occurs. The Aguadilla guys are great to work with. They truly are, especially during the Aguadilla rush, because they know you're an en route controller, not an approach controller with a zoomed up display over their airport, and they know this is not the only thing you have cooking in your pot, right? Today we are focusing on this operation under a microscope and a vacuum, but guess what? You're probably going to have a lot of other aircraft involved in this situation, working sectors 2 and 8. I can probably name at least 7 other aircraft that fly during this part of the night. Some are also landing on Aguadilla, like Cargo 8114, Mountain 7129, JetBlue 950, Crewman's 525, Crewman's 483, Crewman's 481, Argentina 1300, a whole slew of possible Punta Cana departures, Eurowings, Shucks, Air France, Kilo Tango Kilos. We're already up to well above 7 aircraft. So you have other things going on in this sector, right? But babysitting this sequence is something that we're able to do right now, and you're going to be able to do when you work it in the lab. So just remember, you're going to get good at this where you are going, looking at the Borinquen situation, seeing how it's played out, wait a couple sweeps, go check in on some other aircraft, radar identify somebody, give somebody their descent, give somebody a climb. Okay, go back to Aguadilla. How's it working out, right? You can zoom up. I believe I talked about in our first presentation that it's good to have an Aguadilla setting. You can toggle between zoomed up Borinquen, looking at your spaces. Okay, go back to your 2 and 8 settings. Take care of Speedbird 2157 landing a Lopo. That's another nightly guy that kind of will have to pester you a little bit. So just remember that this is not in a vacuum when you're working at real, but guess what? This can help you out, and they will often reach out and help you out, right? You'll call for the position port. Aguadilla Tower, R8 position. Aguadilla Tower. 4 miles southeast of Translaughter 7108. Borinquen Airport in sight does not have Amflight 7120 in sight. And you can ask, may I keep them approaching? And guess what they'll usually say, they're like, you know what, I got them both in sight. Keep them coming, or switch them to me, or something like that. Anything can be done with coordination. And I'm not saying for you to rely on this. Always use positive separation. Use the rules that apply to you in and of your airspace. Don't always depend on them to help you out, but guess what? More often than not, they will. And in this instance, they will. You know they're not a factor, right? You're ensuring the radar separation, but chances are you cannot ensure that radar separation all the way to the ground, right? Because you have to respect the confines of the class delta, right? 5 miles around. What are the requirements to enter class delta? Remember, radio communications with the tower. So you have to follow your rules, comply with the LOA, and comply with the 7110. You can do all of that with coordination. So I know that was very long-winded, and this instruction comes after the fact that I told you that, hey, you can finish the job, but just keep that in mind. Controller applied visual separation can be very helpful in this instance when the aircraft, the succeeding aircraft, does not have the preceding aircraft in sight. In this case, Transauto 7108, we talked about that. We knew that the chances were not in our favor for them to see Flight 7120 right away. This is a good way out. So good job. Let's get FedEx 257 on the approach with the speed reduction. They will never catch Transauto 7108, right? We talked about the going nowhere fast. Well, he's going nowhere slow, but let's get him pointed back at the airport. At this point, Transauto will be on the ground with the downtime, and FedEx will probably not even be inside of Ennis yet. It'll be somewhere between Odez and Ennis. Keep Flight 7110 on a downwind, but get ready to start calling out FedEx 257 heavy to them, right? Have them start looking for that giant heavy MD-11 with the logo light, the purple tail with FedEx written on it. You know, they might be able to see them out there. Chances are they will at that angle. So let's keep this going, keep the positive separation and attitude going, and we are getting our way really close to being done with a successful sequence. So let's keep it going. Okay, let's jump right into the transmissions. FedEx 257 heavy, turn left, direct Odez, cross Odez at or above 3000, cleared RNAV, runway 8 approach. Get the read back, direct Odez, cross it at or above 3000, cleared with the RNAV 8, FedEx 257 heavy. Boom, Flight 7110, traffic 11 o'clock, 13 miles, turning eastbound, heavy MD-11, 5000, perfect. He told the aircraft not exactly where he is, where he's going to be, right, once they make that turn, and you're getting their eyes ready for looking for that heavy aircraft like we just talked about. And like I said, it's a huge aircraft, right, to begin with. And FedEx's fleet is colorful. You know, you got the white, body portion, and when it comes to the tail and the empennage, it's purple. It says FedEx. If he has the logo lights and the beacon going, this should be a sight to see. I mean, I know I'd like to see that sight too, but they have the best view in the house. Flight 7110, you set it up so they had the best view in the house to follow that aircraft. So let's keep it going. All right, good job. Okay, let's truck our way through this. Oh, look, we get a call from Aguadilla Tower. All right, Aguadilla Tower, Flight 7110 on the ground, right? They joked that over the shadow line. We have a little context here. They're talking to the Transauto 7108. Oh, look at this, heavy jet in sight, Flight 7110. Flight 7110, caution wake turbulence, follow the heavy MD-11, cleared visual approach, runway 8, right? Perfect, good job. You can take care of the rest here, right? You did this. I want you to have the joy of finishing this up, right? Do some frequency changes, do some coordinating with Aguadilla Tower, and I'd say you negotiated this sequence very, very well. Good job. See you on the next slide. Great job with that well-conceived and well-applied plan to combat this sequence. The last thing you have to do now is to sit back in your chair, relax, and watch those targets line up and get each successive downtime. Just like with our first date with Aguadilla, back in our chapter 1 of this series, we made it our goal, our mandate, to have every transmission we made be with a purpose, have a sense of utility behind it, right? No wasted transmissions. Well, that cautionary advisory to the Flight about the FedEx 257 Heavy was not just a moot point or just purely because we're being nice and a pleasantry. No, it's when dealing with heavy jets, remember to always give a cautionary wake turbulence advisory to adhere to 7-4-3. All aircraft following a heavy or a small aircraft following a 757 must be informed of the airplane manufacturer and or model. In this case, it was a heavy MD-11. This one being SkyCube, not FedEx, but that's a discussion for a different day. So nothing's left now but frequency changes, coordinations with the tower, and getting your downtimes. Great job, everybody. This was a fantastic way for us to jump from chapter 4, right? IFR, we were kind of stuck there because last presentation, we tried to make our way into Chapter 5, vectoring for final and stuff like that, but due to equipment issues and R8 or R2 and R8 setup, we had to go back to Chapter 4, right? But guess what? We broke our way to Chapter 5 today, got to do some speed manipulating, right? Speeding aircraft up, slowing aircraft down. It was wonderful. Using positive separation, great phraseology. Got to deal with a slew of different aircraft types today, right? A couple different kind of turboprops and a heavy MD-11. I thought it went over very well. I think you have more tools in your toolbox. You can go over this presentation. You can stare at the series of slides, and you can think about how this sequence could have been solved differently, right? Maybe you get that case of Jedius and FedEx is #1 and you have everybody follow them. There's some advantages to that plan. There's some advantages to any plan that you come up with. Just remember, keep it safe and keep in mind that efficiency should follow right behind, right? But always keep it safe, right? As long as you execute a plan that was safe and not too far off the beaten path of having aircraft wait exorbitantly long to be vectored in or sequenced into the airport, then I think you did a good job. But today's plan, it worked out. Face it, if it wasn't for the good weather that was implied today under this vacuum of this presentation, it might have ended up differently. We sometimes have to have both plan A, B, and C. What happens if this went wrong, then we go to B. And if that goes wrong, we go to C, right? There's 4 aircraft out there, right? There's 4 possibilities. There's plan A, B, C, and D, and all of which involve one aircraft being first and all the aircraft falling behind them. So as you see, there is a plethora of possibilities to deal with this situation. I hope you saw that today, at least the way I justified it, gets your wheels turning up there and thinking, hey, this is what I'm going to apply. But if you notice, everything after we decide that initial sequence, we did it by the book. So I hope that you take that away, learning some new things. Read Chapter 5. Chapter 5 is a great chapter. Chapter 7 is even better because we as en route controllers, even though we deal primarily in the flight levels, San Juan's that unique facility where you're working that IFR aircraft at 43,000 feet. You're working that Gulfstream G6 at 47, and you're working that Cessna in Aguadilla at 3,500. And you really get to use all chapters of the 7110. There's very little that is left out to you as an en route controller here at San Juan, and that should be a source of pride for you. So I hope you had fun today. I know I had a great time. Beautiful day in the Caribbean to control traffic. Today was a great day to learn some things in the 7110. I will see you at the next slide for the send-off, and yeah, see you there. Whoa, just a day at the beach. Great job, guys. I had a really good time with this one. It is really fun whenever your shoulder is tapped and you get to work the session, to work the inbound arrival push. It is a great way to always implement new ideas, take a rule, take something you didn't know before, put it in there, maybe work a different aircraft. Every day is different. Who's #1, #2? It's kind of a fun constant that you know that Amflight 7120, 7106, 7110, Translow 7108, FedEx 257 Heavy, Night Cargo 7114, or 7914 or whatever are always going to be there. And guess what? Some days the FedEx is early, sometimes FedEx is late. Sometimes there's an Emirates that's later early, right? Emirates coming from Bogota. Sometimes there is a Cargolux coming from Quito over Scapa, and you get to apply your trade and take a swing at it, right? Batter up, you know? And it's not like you have 3 strikes. You constantly learn. As long as you keep it safe, you'll always pull something away. How you could have did it differently, did it the same. It's wonderful. So enjoy yourself. Give yourself a pat on the back for making through this presentation. I'm Steve. May you always have a positive attitude, just like your positive separation, right? And I'll see you down the way. All right, take care.